G'day guys, we've got a 2009 Toyota Prado 3 litre turbo diesel come in. Got towed in, it's running very rough and it's blowing a whole lot of smoke. Now these are notorious for cracking pistons due to injectors leaking. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to do a quick relative compression test. So it's obviously got a dead misfire, so we want to confirm or rule out that it's got a mechanical issue. So I'm going to get the CarScope eye tester by Dytex and we're going to do a relative compression test first with that and then decide what to do from there. What I've done is I've taken out the fuel pump relay, the EFI relay, and we've just got the eye tester here. So I'm going to start that, then we're going to go over and crank the engine and see what happens. Let's go have a look at the results. As you can see, one cylinder, almost no compression. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the Pico out, we're going to get the amp clamp over it, we're going to get a sync on one of the cylinders, and we're also going to get the pressure pulse sensor on the dipstick to confirm whether we definitely have a cracked piston and compression's going out into the crankcase, and we'll go from there. Obviously with the relative compression tester failing, you can use a sync to see which cylinder it is on that actual tool, but obviously we're suspecting everything is going into the crankcase, possible cracked piston. So what we have done is we've got the Pico out because we need more than 2 channels. We have got Cody's pressure pulse sensor directly on the dipstick, as you can see there. We have got Injector 1 sync hooked up. We have also got you probably see that down there, we've got a back probe on the crank position sensor. And what we're going to put in is the Pico 2000 amp clamp. We're going to stick that around the battery cable. I just want to say a big thank you to Ben at Mount Auto Equipment. That guy has got the best customer support and really looks after us when we need him. If we've got any questions, he's always happy to answer the phone and answer any questions we have. So they are, Mount Auto Equipment is the Pico distributors, the official Pico distributors in Australia. So if you're in Australia and you want some Pico stuff, make sure you head over to Mount Auto Equipment and ask for Ben and he'll look after you. So we're going to get that on the battery and we're going to look for the crank pulses from the crankcase to see if we're getting compression going into the crankcase to prove that we've got an issue, a lower end sealing issue, either a cracked piston or possible rings. And the issue is with this is we could not get this to a point where we can get an injector sync when the vehicle has either the fuel disconnected because we think that the fuel rail pressure sensor is registering no pressure and that is automatically cutting off the injector signal. So what we have done is we have turned all the channels off except for the Injector 1 sync and the crank position sensor sync. So what we have done is we've got that up, hopefully you can see that, and what we've done is we've just compared the firing of Injector 1 to the amount of teeth on the actual crank position signal. Guys, amp clamps on. Let's get you over to the screen. We are running, we've got our blue trace as the relative compression, we've got our yellow trace as the crank position sensor, and we've got our green trace as the pulse sensor on the dipstick. So let's do that. So we had a bit of a mishap there. We're going to do that again now that we've got it ready to go. Okay, let's analyze that together. As you can see guys, we're zoomed in right there. Now we've got our points lined up from the crank position sensor, but the problem is we can't get a good sync on this to find out what the exact order is and which one actually has the dead compression. As you can see, the top green trace is the pulse sensor. As you can see, normal compression, slight vacuum, positive pressure, slight vacuum, positive pressure, no vacuum, positive pressure the whole time over that dead compression. So we know that that compression is going directly into the crankcase. So in order to find out exactly which one that is, instead of mucking around and trying to get something off the car, we are simply going to put this back together, get it running, and put a thermal imager over the exhaust and see if we can see exactly which one is the misfiring cylinder. Alright guys, this isn't the greatest view, so I hope you can hear me talking over this, but we're looking at the front of the exhaust manifold. As you can see, number one, very hot in its flow out of it. As you go past the outlet on number two, it cools down, and if you go down the back, if you look at the back, you go back to 3 and 4 down the back, they get red hot again. So this looks like number two. Let's go to the scan tool and let's see what the scan tool says. Injection feedback on all of them. Number two, stuck at 5. So that correlates to what we did with the thermal imager. So number two is definitely the problem. Alright guys, so what we've done is I've taken the rocker cover off and I've pulled out the number 2 injector. I had a look at the washer and the washer is intact. Now, you know, the other way that the compression could be getting into the actual crankcase is by the injector washer leaking, because the injector washers actually sit under the rocker cover. So that was the other cause, but to be honest with you, with the amount of oil that was pouring at the back through the exhaust, it obviously lent us towards the actual bottom end part of it. So we had to check that injector washer to be sure, and what we're going to do now is we're going to do a compression test on number 2, because we know that there's pressure in the crankcase, and the only other way it could get in there other than that injector washer is through the actual piston or the piston rings. So I'm going to get out the Hubitools Master Digital Pressure Tester Kit. I've already set it up there with the injector adapter. So I'm going to go grab that kit and we'll do a compression test. Here we are. Here's this beautiful piece of machinery. Let's turn this on. See how quickly this loads up. Beautiful compression. 300 bar sensor, that's what we have. Oh, we're not plugged in. What I'll do is I'll plug this in first. Hang on 2 seconds. Okay. So what we do have to do is, this is the actual sensor itself. This is a one-way valve that we have to put in whenever we do compression test to obviously get our compression high. So I'll plug this in, I'll plug it in, and we'll press compression again and see what happens. Okay guys, we're connected back up. Let's go. 300 bar sensor. We've sensed it, so let's go crank it and see what happens. I will bring you back here. Alright guys, I got you on here. We're not going to crank it for too long. We're just going to crank it enough to see whether we actually have compression or not, because we don't want oil splashing around everywhere. So let's give it a crack. Okay guys, we're back again. I'm sure you heard the puffing in that last cranking sequence we did. So obviously we know that there's compression going somewhere, and obviously to rule out the injector washer, even our little setup here, we had to do a little bit of a doozy and make our own connection, because although this Hubitools Master Kit comes with heaps of adapters, sometimes they're not going to fit everything, so we have to do our own little connection. I have got that remote starter switch, so that way I can be over here, crank it and listen and watch. And what I have done is I've set this back up. We're going to go 0 to 580 because I think it's about 300 psi, these cylinders. So we are going to crank this again. It's very difficult to get in here. I'm going to try and put my hand around to see where the air is coming from. What I might do is I'm going to spray some Windex down the actual injector hole there, in tube there, to see if, you know, if we put some Windex down there, if we got compression coming up through that, it's going to blow that up or bubble it or something. So we're going to see if we can see that visually. So let's try that. So I'm going to just spray that down there. I don't know, I hope you can see what I'm doing down there, but just going to spray that down there. Yes, I know that's no good for the oil. We'll you know, depending on what happens with this, we'll obviously going to change the oil anyway. So let's do that. So I'm going to get you down here. We're going to have a good look at the whatever's happening, and we're going to see if we can see any puffs coming from the injector seal, which there shouldn't be because that's down pretty tight, or around the oil galleries in the head. Alright, let me just do that, and while we're doing that, I've got the compression tester on anyway, so it's going to read what compression we've got.
All right, let's do it. Not sure if you can see there, guys, but that compression was coming directly up through this area here. So we know this is 100% a bottom end issue. We're going to call the customer, see what they want to do, obviously inspect what needs to be done, whether they want to recondition the engine, whether they want to put a second hammer in. We don't know, but we definitely have a bottom end issue. I did try and get a bore scope in there. I've got 3 bore scopes, 2 of them wouldn't fit, and the one that would fit, the light is very poor and I couldn't really see properly. So, you know, a compression test just completely rules all of that in or out. And as you can see here, 6 PSI, yeah, definitely a problem there. So thanks for watching, guys. Look, obviously we know that, you know, these are quite a common problem with the lower ends on these, but obviously we want to be 100% sure before we're, you know, selling a customer anything. And my light is dying, thank you very much. So we have to go the extra mile, confirm it 100%, and now we know. So it's on to the customer, see what they want to do. Thanks for watching, guys.